The Red Sox continue to add outfield depth to their depth chart going into 2023, and we're going to break down two signings that they made in the last few days in this episode of the Locked On Red Sox podcast.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I want to welcome you back into the Locked On Red Sox podcast, and thank you so much for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. I'm your host, Jake Ignaszewski, and here, as always, with me is NESN's Lauren Willand. And I got to tell you, I really missed talking about the Red Sox over this last week or so. I was on a family vacation in Florida. It was nice being in, the 70, 80 degree weather, but now coming back to New Hampshire with 30 or 40 degrees, and especially with the snowstorm coming along in the next few days. Definitely didn't miss this part of the New England weather too much, but did miss talking about my favorite team.
Yeah, I mean, the weather, that is what it is, right? That's just classic New England weather. It's 50 degrees sometimes this week, and now we're going to get some rain, snowstorm tonight into Friday. But, I'm glad you got to enjoy some sunshine, some warm weather, because I have a friend in Florida right now as well, and he was like, the first few days were like 50 degrees, and it was like at night it was cold. It was getting into the 30s. He's like, finally, some warm weather. So I'm glad that you got the warm weather there.
Got a little bit. It was funny. It was like 65, and I was like outside tanning at like a beach, and this guy came up to me. He's like, "You have to be from up north because everybody else is in their winter hats and winter coats." And I'm like, "This is nice. What are you talking about?" Like, I'm loving this. But it was nice to see the Red Sox being active in free agent signings over the last few days, adding depth to this 2023 team. Not doing too much stuff in terms of up the middle. Still some question marks there, and I wasn't here to speak about a little bit of the Trevor Story stuff. Boy, it was nice to have a little bit of a stretch of some positivity in Red Sox Nation, but that just brings much more questions regarding up the middle, the lack of depth, not having Story in the lineup, and for him to be out for majority of this next season definitely puts a little bit of a damper, continuing to add some more of those questions, but just makes it much more fun for you and I to talk about and think about what could be for this next season regarding the Red Sox. But it was nice to see them make a move, adding to their outfield depth, and Adam Duvall ended up signing a 1-year, $7 million deal with some incentives. It was also nice to see a friend of the podcast break that deal in Chris Henrique. Definitely happy for him. Always, not only love his insight on Beyond the Monster, but anytime he comes on here, does a great job of bringing up tons of different points. So it was nice to see him report that first. But I really enjoyed getting to look more into what Duvall not only did in the beginning of this past year of 2022 with the Atlanta Braves, but majority seeing how much he broke out in 2021 and starting to think in my mind how that really will correlate to the Red Sox lineup this next season.
Yeah, in 2021, he was a borderline elite hitter. So hopefully that would be nice if he can return to that kind of form in 2022. And he does have some questions surrounding him. And I said this on Wednesday's episode that he has the potential, right? And it's like everyone else in this lineup that he has the potential to be good. We know the talent is there. We've seen that talent in the National League with the Braves and with his short stint with the Marlins. So it's there, but wrist injuries are so tricky. He had the sheath tendon or the tendon sheath surgery, and it was, we know how wrist injuries can be. We've seen them hinder a lot of people and just how they maybe never are the same again. Hopefully that's not the case for him. And age, even though he's only 34, age isn't on his side here. So I like the signing. I don't think it's a bad signing for the Red Sox. I just hope that we see 2021 Duvall in that 2022 injury-riddled Duvall.
Yeah, I agree. And, as you mentioned, 2021, was an unreal hitter, hit 38 home runs, adds some of that power, hopefully, to the Red Sox lineup. He's able to channel what made him so successful in 21. Also ended up leading the NL in RBIs. But, as I mentioned, injury riddled season in 2022, had a left wrist sprain, ended up playing 86 games and played until July 23rd, and then ended up having season-ending surgery on that left wrist, but ended up still hitting 212. Hopefully he's able to obviously improve that playing with the Red Sox, but ended up still hitting 12 home runs. And, when you look at his spray chart, it's a lot of on the left side of the field and ends up, hitting a lot of doubles to left field. And that will certainly help with the monster over there at Fenway Park.
Yeah, I mean the spray chart, you have it posted here in our show notes. The spray chart looks really nice for Fenway Park, to put it lightly. And if obviously we can't show it to you on Locked On Red Sox, we don't have the share screen option here, but go look it up because it is impressive. It is made for Fenway Park, so I hope he can tap into that. And he won't fix the entire power problem that the Red Sox have, but he will help with it. And even if he can be an ounce of what he was in 2021, I still think that's a win. And this lineup, I mean, you look at the lineup on paper, the projected lineup for 2023, there is going to be a lot of power from, Devers and Casas when he's 100% ready for MLB work. And I do think we'll see a lot of that this year. But I still think they need more power in that lineup because there's a lot that could go wrong, and there's a lot that may not work out. But potential, right? That's the theme of the 2023 Red Sox. They do have the potential to be a fun lineup. It's just, I just don't know if the power is completely fixed yet, just because they signed Duvall.
Right. I do agree with that. And, I think as well, with these two outfield signings, it really does beg into question, does this potentially lead to a trade of Jaron Duran, of Alex Verdugo? Will Duvall slot into that center field position? Will they, move Kike Hernandez to second base or shortstop? Obviously, so many different scenarios that could happen with all this. Chaim Bloom always says, he likes having more depth than not, having all these different scenarios and places that you can put different guys and the versatility that these different players bring definitely helps. But one thing with Duvall that is really interesting is him playing center field, and he's only made 75 appearances at that position his entire professional career. And prior to his injury, he was actually a very versatile outfielder for the Braves. Ended up starting 43 games in center field, 26 in left field, and 11 in right. So he does have the ability to play the corners. Obviously, both corners at Fenway Park are very difficult.
Very
Not
different.
to say that center field isn't any easier, but luckily he does have some speed on his side. Ended up having 4 OAAs, which is outs above average, and that's essentially the range-based metric of skill that shows how many outs a player has saved. And so he ended up having 4 of those in center field, ranked 20th out of 46 qualified players at the position, and then 5 in total, with that being 26th out of 125 outfielders. So definitely looks like a very good defensive outfielder that the Red Sox will add to their depth chart. But basically, it's nice to not only have a one-sided player, somebody that only brings offense. Luckily, it's a dual sort of skill player in Duvall that the Red Sox will get.
Yeah, I think we'll see more defensive wise. I think we'll see more, not so much like a Jackie Bradley Jr. kind of thing where we know that he had elite defense and his offense was going to struggle. But I do think we'll see some better defense than offense from Duvall. And it is nice that he can play every single outfield position. Does that mean he should? No, but there is that ability to slot in if there's an injury, if there's some sort of emergency where you need to have him play in right instead of center, or vice versa. So the versatility is good, but there is a logjam of outfielders now. And especially, you talked about Jaron Duran. Does this set up a trade for him now to be traded out of Boston? Because Alex Cora mentioned him as somebody who could get a second chance and who should get a second look because everything that happened last year. And Alex Cora kind of called him out and said this is a big year for him. And now when you bring in Duvall and then Tapia as well, which we'll talk about later, does it just creates a bigger logjam? Because I don't think they're trading Verdugo. I don't think that's going to be the case at all. And obviously you have Duvall and Kike. Like, if do you want to keep Kike in the outfield? That's going to be that's one of the biggest questions heading into 2023. But now there's a logjam of outfielders, and I'm choosing Duvall over Duran any day.
Yeah, me too. And especially with his experience in the majors, and not only what he's done on paper statistically, but also what he brings to the clubhouse. And this is one thing that we've seen, be very interesting with some of the moves that Heimblum has made. Obviously, a lot of it has to do with how is this player going to produce to an overall team winning on the field with his talent and his performance, but it also helps with the chemistry that he brings in the clubhouse. And obviously, with what we've seen, not only with the Red Sox past in 2013, 2021, but also with other teams' experience, being able to have high chemistry and high energy and personality in a clubhouse definitely helps when going towards whether it's a playoff berth or a World Series. And we saw what Travis d'Arnaud said prior to Duvall getting injured last season. He said he's such a big part of this clubhouse, especially on the field. He keeps everybody in great moods all the time. And so, when you look at the Duvall signing as well as the Justin Turner signing, two guys who are in that later part of 30, but are really able to bring energy and personality to this clubhouse and could essentially be a glue that, the Red Sox lost in Xander Bogaerts.
Yeah, and they very well could be. I think, that's great that they can do that to a clubhouse. They're obviously respected veterans, and I love that. I mean, I just when I'm looking at a player, obviously I want them not to be a clubhouse cancer, but I don't care if you're going to bring personality, you're going to be the driest player that I've ever seen in my life. I just want you to perform well. And you look at Mike Trout, right? He does not market himself, and that's fine. He doesn't want to do it. He doesn't want to do it. And he's one of the best arguably the best player in Major League Baseball, and people call him the most boring player in Major League Baseball just because he doesn't show a lot of personality, and that's okay. He gets the job done. Unfortunately, he does see a lot of injuries throughout his career, and I don't know if he's ever going to see a World Series championship if he stays with the Angels out there. But like I said, it's great that they can bring that presence, and they can bring that kind of leadership, which you don't really have after you lost Bogaerts. And yes, you have Verdugo, who's been there for a few years, obviously Devers, who's been there for a few years, but still very young. And it's always good to have veteran voices. But like I said, if you're going to bring personality and nothing else, then I don't want you.
Oh yeah, 100%. And we saw what Kyle Schwarber was able to bring after the trade deadline and the spark that he was able to add to the Red Sox during 2021. And hopefully, Duvall and Turner can do somewhat similar. Those two guys have experience. Being able to get to the World Series. Duvall with the Braves, and then Turner with the Dodgers as well. So, being able to have that experience in those high pressure moments, and especially with, it's a medium young team for the Red Sox. There's some old guys, there's some young guys, and especially being able to have that mix, that's great, but also being able to have those veteran guys to be able to help people like Tristan Casas, Brian Bayo, some of those younger guys, and obviously we might see some prospects continue to come up this next season. Being able to have that guys in that clubhouse, especially without Bogaerts, who was that essential captain and went through the system and everything like that, but also I feel like it's also nice to not only have people who have outside experiences and an outside voice and opinions on different subjects on how to win and how to be able to ultimately win games in an effective way, especially when you get to those critical parts of October.
Yeah, and Justin Turner and Adam Duvall have won World Series championships. You have Kike Hernandez who won a World Series with Justin Turner. So you have the experience. You don't just have veterans who have never played in October, and you have these players who know what it takes to get to the postseason, who knows what has to be done, the adjustments that have to be made, and also knows that the regular season stats do not matter when you get to the postseason, but the Red Sox have to get there first, and that's going to be the first, it's going to be a big test for them this season if they can get there, and how these veterans play a role. And if this team is garbage by May or June, how are these players going to react? It's going to be a big test regardless of how this team does. I hope that it's not June and where they're so far out of it that we're talking about 2024 in June. But it's always good to have the experience, right? When you get to the postseason, especially when you've won World Series, even if you haven't, even if you've only been to the World Series and never won, you still have that experience, and you know the energy, you know any sort of feeling and emotion and anxiety that goes into playing those games every night.
And you mentioned that. That's one thing that I haven't thought about. Especially when you go through those roller coaster of emotions throughout the season. We saw it in 21 when the Sox going into the All-Star break were the best team in
It
baseball.
seemed
And
like
then
it, yeah.
August came around and they had the whole COVID outbreak, and then they barely scratched into the playoffs. But it's nice to be able to have guys like Kike and all the other guys who are still from that 2021 team who understood, how the team was able to still be resilient in those moments and overcome some of those challenges. But, and also being able to have those guys who dealt through 2022 and are going to be able to use that season to sort of motivate them. But, one last thing that I wanted to speak about with Duvall is, I saw a lot of things circulating on Twitter over the last few days regarding the Red Sox lineup now that Duvall is potentially slide into that center field position. And, MLB Network ended up coming out with a projected starting lineup. It has Yoshida leading off, Kike 2, Devers 3, Turner 4, and then Verdugo in the cleanup spot, Duvall at 6, and then Casas at 7, and then finishes with Arroyo and Reese McGuire. But the main debate was around Duvall at number 6 and Casas at 7. A lot of people believe that Casas should be above Duvall. Some people think, it should be, maybe Duvall at 4 or 5. I was curious your thoughts and, starting to look at what the lineup could potentially look like this next season with Duvall in it.
Yeah, I mean, if he can do what he did in 2021, that's a nice cleanup hitter, right
Hmm.
behind Devers. But 4 or 5, I think that's a good spot for him, at least to start the season. See if that's going to work for him, or if you need to make adjustments on the fly. But I haven't put too much thought into the lineup, like not the rotation, how they're going to line up when the season starts. But I would say 4 or 5. I don't think that's really an issue for him, and I think he'd be fine there.
Yeah, well, one other thing that I heard somebody say a few times through Twitter was maybe Devers number 2. Thought that was kind of interesting, but that will continue to evolve not only throughout the offseason if the Red Sox add guys, or also throughout spring training through what Core sees and how he feels comfortable putting guys in different positions. But we're also going to speak on the other outfield signing that the Red Sox made in Raimel Tapia in our second segment. But before we do that, Lauren just wants to take a second to talk to you about Built Bar.
Yeah, I mean, you know how much I love Built Bar, and if you're looking for a delicious treat, but you don't want all of the fat and calories that sometimes come in those delicious treats, then you have got to try a Built Bar. We just got through the holidays. We're almost through January, and a lot of people's resolutions, including my own, revolve around eating healthier. And Built Bar helps you achieve that. I absolutely love Built Bar. I had one before we got on here, right after I got out of the gym. You have to try it because with Built, healthy is actually tasty. They're so delicious that you probably won't even think they're good for you. And some of that has to do with them being covered in 100% real chocolate. And they come in a ton of flavors. There's churro, there's peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. Of course, there's my favorite, cookie dough, which I can just never resist. And I don't know how they do it, but these bars taste just like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros, 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and 17 grams of protein. And we've talked for a while about going to built.com to get your box of Built Bars, but now you do not need to wait because you can get them at your local Walmart. Just go to your local Walmart, right to the pharmacy section, or if Sam's Club is closer to you, you can go to Sam's Club as well. They have all the different flavors there, literally something for everyone. So head on over to your local Walmart, Sam's Club, or still at built.com if you are a patient person. You will not regret trying a Built Bar.
So now it's time to talk about the next outfield signing that the Red Sox made in Raimel Tapia. And it's interesting, thinking back on his season in 2022, because the first thing that comes to mind is the Jaron Duran play. And you know what I'm talking about, the inside the
Everyone knows
park
what you're
grand
talking about.
slam that and Tapia was the one who ended up hitting that. And now this could potentially mean, we spoke about how Duvall being signed could make a roadblock in the outfield. And especially now with the Tapia signing, even though it's a minor league signing, he still does have way more major league experience than Jaron Duran does. So could this potentially create a Jarren Duran, Raimel Tapia spring training battle in the outfield?
I hope it doesn't create a battle because I hope Duran's traded by then. I just think,
Me too.
Raimel Tapia, oh man, that play, that grand slam, like that's just a moment that's probably always going to just, I don't know if haunt Red Sox fans is the right word, but just like boil their blood because he didn't play the ball well. Duran didn't play the ball well. And we couldn't do anything except watch Raimel Tapia run the bases and just keep going and going and going. But I think that the Woo Sox, they need outfield help too. I think that plugs a hole for them. But it is kind of weird how much major league experience Tapia has, and he didn't even get a 1-year deal, major league deal anywhere else. I don't know what that's about. I didn't read too much into why, if there's anything out there why, but I like the signing overall. But like we've mentioned, now does create kind of a log jam. If they do keep Duran, does that create a competition? And it's always good to have competition kind of like that within your team, especially with a player like Duran, who certainly needs to prove himself. But I like the signing overall. We know Duran, how he's acted, and when he can't make a play properly. I don't know if maybe he's done some growth over the offseason, if he's going to come in and be like, well, the center field's my position, and I don't know why you're going to get all these other outfielders and whatever. But I think that Tapia is a good fit for this team, and either way, he fits well with the Woo Sox because they need outfield help, and the Red Sox, I feel like he'll get plenty of reps in Worcester, and then if they need him to come up, then he's an easy call up. So I'd like to see more of him at the major league level. I mean, of course, spring training is going to be huge for him and a lot of guys, but this signing definitely intrigued me. And also, like, I love when players break their own news, and he broke the story like on his own Instagram. I love when players do that. It's fun for me because it's something you don't see very often. So that I like that he was able to do that. So good for him. But he also provides versatility, and not just with the Woo Sox, but if the Red Sox need it too. Yes, that there's a logjam of outfielders, but are they going to stay healthy? Are they going to struggle? Are they going to need someone like Tapia in that lineup? He provides depth and versatility, but I think he just adds more questions now of what is this outfield going to look like?
Right. That's a huge question. And, even though he did sign a minor league deal, I got to be quite honest with you. I'd be very surprised if he does start with the Woo Sox.
Yeah.
Who knows? It could just be a depth piece, but he has too much experience in the majors not just a few bats here and there. I mean, he had 433 plate appearances with the Blue Jays last year and hit 265 and, ended up also, having an 18.7, strikeout percentage, very low in terms of the MLB average. And the one thing that, he does need to work on is, being more patient at the plate, and up only walking 4% of the time. Does need to improve that a little bit. But as you mentioned, does have that versatility, can not only play center field, left field, and he's roughly an average defender. But reading up on him a little bit, outside of the Blue Jays non-tendering him, he was supposed to make a predicted $5.2 million. And so to see him have to settle for a minor league deal, as you mentioned, a little bit surprising. But the one thing that makes me think is, what's going to be the first interaction between Tapia and Duran? Obviously, we're not going to get to see that or anything like that, but I mean, you got to make some sort of joke, you know what I mean, to break the ice a little bit. Duran knows it.
Duran
he
does
knows
not have
it.
a leg to stand on to make those kinds of jokes. Like, you cannot play the outfield.
I more meant Tapia.
Oh, Tapia. Then he can be like, yeah, go back to the bench warmer.
And I think as well, Tapia and all right experience at Fenway Park was 9 for 30 with 2 home runs, 12 RBIs, and a 900 OPS. Obviously, he's not going to be facing those pitchers that he did now that he's on the actual Red Sox, but shows that he does have experience in success hitting at Fenway Park. So curious to see, what he'll really bring to the Red Sox. And, another minor league signing that we haven't talked about yet is catcher and DH Jorge Alfaro, who ended up, playing with the San Diego Padres this past season. And he actually has had a lot of success so far this winter in the Dominican Winter League, ended up just winning the MVP last night. And also throughout that tournament, ended up batting 370 with 4 home runs with 10 doubles and a triple. And, one thing that, really stuck out to me is ended up struggling a little bit last year with the Padres. From what I saw, struck out a lot more than he did get on base. But this sort of alludes to something that you mentioned in the first segment. I like when players, have more of an impact on the field rather than off the field. Obviously, the off field stuff with the personality and the energy in the clubhouse helps. But I think Alfaro, he not only brings catching depth, but the stats don't really jump off the page to you. But the one thing that jumps off the page to me is he has massive personality, massive energy. Every single video that I saw of him not playing on the baseball field, he was laughing, he was hyping the guys up in the clubhouse. So, great depth piece, but who knows how much of an impact he'll really have off the field that he will off the field.
Yeah, he had a 667 OPS last year against major leaguers. So, it's great to see what he's done so far with the Dominican Winter League, but I don't have much. I'm not high on this signing. Like, I'm not jumping up and down. I think it's a good depth signing. And if Connor Wong is going to be with the Red Sox, and the Wu Sox need catching help, and it's kind of the same thing with Tapia, right? If Wong struggles or if Reese McGuire gets hurt or anything like that, you can at least call him up because he has the major league experience. He can call a game. He can play that catcher position. So he does add nice depth. It's not something. I just feel like the Red Sox signings that they've made specifically this week it just aren't going to super duper excite Red Sox fans. But what can you do at this point? There's not a lot of sexy free agent names. I feel like I've said that so many times this week, but there's still the trade market. But I like I said, the signing is fine, and I think we'll see a lot of him in Worcester. But I mean, that's just more reason to go to Worcester because they have a fun team. They were great last year, and they still have really good players even this year. So whatever puts butts in seats.
Right. I'm so curious to see too what happens with Duran and Dalbec. Those are two guys. We've talked a lot about Duran, but Dalbec, it's been pretty silent throughout this offseason outside of, I remember when I was at the MLB winter meetings, there was a little bit of rumblings that they were actively talking about him. And you mentioned the team is still on the trade market. Who knows what will happen with Tanner Houck? We mentioned Alex Verdugo. Those are two names that we brought up a lot throughout this offseason that have been talked about. Nothing has been really talked about too much about Brian Reynolds either. Hopefully the Sox can, add a power bat to their lineup and, obviously continue to answer some of the middle infield question marks. But, we're going to continue to, update you and give our reactions on everything that's happening surrounding this team. And we greatly appreciate, as always, you making Locked On Red Sox your first listen of every single day. Now make sure to check out and listen to Locked On MLB Prospects. Host Lindsey Crosby is a prospect encyclopedia, and we can also back that up from our experience having him on this podcast. Does a great job every single time, whether he's a guest on here or he's hosting his own podcast of coming prepared, doing his homework, and really giving you all the information that you need to know everything about whether it's a specific team's farm system or a specific prospect. So he also goes very deep into the MLB Stars of Tomorrow and updates you everything that you need to know about MLB prospects. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And also make sure to follow Locked On Red Sox on Twitter. It's at LO_Red Sox. We try to get you involved with every single episode as much as possible. So we usually post a question over on that account and then read off your responses and try to get you involved in each and every single episode. Also, make sure to follow me. It's at Jake Iggy, as well as Lauren over on Twitter. It's la 3 laws, Lauren with 4 R's. But we hope everybody has a relaxing and fun weekend. Buckle up and get ready for an exciting next week. We're going to be starting it off with an interview with Taylor Broadway and hearing a little bit about how his offseason is going so far. But we can't wait to see what the Red Sox continue to do leading up to spring training, which is only a few weeks away. Super duper exciting to get the season almost up and running. But greatly appreciate everybody tuning in as always. Talk to you later. We'll end it how we always end it. Let's go Sox.